Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Today I'm going to talk about telomere-to-telomere assemblies. So this is complete assembly representing every base in your genome, and talking about how we can make it accessible to everyone so that anyone can build an assembly for their genome of choice. So as most of you probably know, a couple of years ago, we finished the human reference in this way and generated a T2T assembly for it. This was a very manual process, but we took everything we learned from that and built it into our software called Verco, the genome assembly, and this is an automated way to reproduce what we did. The recipe that it uses, so the data types that are input here is PagBio hi-fi data, and this lets you distinguish repeats that are almost identical. ONT ultralong, which lets you span repeats that are identical and very long because these reads are extremely long, megabases long, and Hi-C, which lets you phase and scaffold the data. So essentially tells you when two things occur in the same molecule, the paternal or paternally inherited chromosomes, assuming a diploid genome. And the method kind of progressively simplifies this data type. So it starts by correcting the reads. It builds this assembly graph, which is shown at the top here. And this graph still has a lot of ambiguity remaining. There's, bits where the chromosome, the two haplotypes differ. There's reads that are too short, so we have ambiguous bubbles and tangles like this. And then we layer on more and more data to progressively simplify it. So first the ultra long data, which for example tells us how to resolve this part, and then the phasing, which lets us actually find the full maternally or paternally inherited path. And the output is a T2T haplotype. So essentially, for every chromosome, you get two contigs, one the maternal inherited, one paternally inherited, again, for a diploid genome. And so since we could do this automatically, we had done this for one genome, we could do this now for hundreds of genomes. So this is an example of about 200 genomes from the Human Pangenome Reference Consortium. They're arrayed by chromosomes, so chromosomes 1 through 22, X and Y. And then the blue here indicates we have a T2T contig. So this is a sequence has a telomere on one end, the other end, and no ambiguous bases, fully resolved. So this is the ideal. And then the red is T2T on both telomeres on both ends, but there's one gap or maybe two gaps remaining. For most cases, it's just one gap. And the nice thing about arraying it by chromosome like this is you can see some patterns start to emerge and kind of learn what the human genome looks like and how it behaves. So these chromosomes that look different from all the rest are the acrocentrics. These are the human chromosomes that contain the rDNA array. This is a large 45 kilobase repeat that's arrayed over and over again in hundreds of copies on these chromosomes. And so this is just too long for us to resolve with any current data type. And so what best we can do right now is just say, here's a couple of copies at the start, a couple of copies at the end of the array, and then leave a gap for the array in the middle. And in some cases, these arrays can be short, and that's why you see some blue at the bottoms there, where the shorter, when the chromosome happens to have a shorter array, it can get fully resolved. You can also start seeing patterns that, for example, chromosome 1 is more complicated than the average. It has fewer T2T contigs, a smaller blue bar. But then things like chromosome 11, 12, 18, 19, 20 are pretty simple. They're doing better than average. You can also see outliers like chromosome 9 here. And this is unexpected because it's not an acrocentric, but it's behaving like one. It's got fewer T2T contigs and scaffolds than we would expect. So if we zoom in on this bar now, and instead of sorting it by T2T contig, we sort it by times with the oldest at the top and the newest data generated at the bottom. And we see we're going along and we're getting mostly T2T contigs in blue here, a few scaffolds here and there. But then something happens around here and we all of a sudden just break and we don't get T2T contigs or scaffolds almost at all anymore. And this actually coincided with an instrument switch where we switched to the PagBio Revio, and this instrument happened to have a sequencing bias where it dropped out a region of this chromosome preferentially. And obviously, once we saw that, we reported it back to the company, and their newer chemistries do tend to address this and do improve this problem. But this is kind of the power of looking at hundreds of genomes so you can understand how they behave and what you need to change. I told you that we can close about half the genomes without a gap, half the chromosomes. But the question is then, what do you do for the other half? And so we're working on two tools to address that. The first is trivial tangle traverser, which is being worked on by Dmitry Antipov, who is in the corner picture you can see here. And this is for those cases where the repeat is too large so that there's more than one possible reconstruction of it that is consistent with all your data. But we want to represent it, essentially, you can think of it as a model of repeat array. So we're going to represent all the copies of the repeat, but we might switch the actual repeat units. And so in terms of an optimization, you can think of it essentially, we want to use every node in the graph. Essentially, we want to put every bit of your sequence that is in your genome into the assembly and the right number of copies. And if you map back any of your reads, all the reads would say, yeah, this looks good. I don't have any problems with this. The problem is there may be more than one such reconstruction, and we'll pick one at random. So that's why it's a model sequence, but it's an automated tool that will help you resolve these remaining complex gaps. And Dima is going to present it on January 13th at 10:50 a.m. if you want to hear more details about this algorithm. Another more manual tool that we're working on, and this is led by Jian Kim, who is pictured here, is Verco Fillet. And this is a post-processing kind of easy-to-use tutorial starting with a Verco assembly. It helps you assign the chromosomes, make them match the orientation of your reference if you have a reference, or sort them by length. It lets you validate them with standardized metrics and QC checks. It lets you visualize stats in progress. So it'll tell you, you've got half your chromosomes are T2T contigs. As you make changes and improve the assembly, it'll keep updating that and show you now you're at 70%, so on and so on. And it has kind of a tutorial and guidelines on what you can do about remaining gaps and how you can resolve them, whether that's using T2T for some of the more complex ones or using kind of manual curation for some of the other ones. And then it'll guide you and help you make a corrected assembly after you've made all these kind of edits. And again, Jian is going to present that on January 13th at 11:10 a.m. Again, if you want to hear more details about this tool and how she used it for a giraffe genome to resolve T2T assembly of the giraffe. But the question you might be asking yourself as I'm talking here is, how do you know any of this is correct, right? My only definition of T2T contig so far has telomeres at the start, has telomeres at the end, and no ambiguous base in between. But I could just generate random sequence and meet that metric, right? And so the question is, how do we know that all these 200 genomes or whatever we're generating is actually correct or any good? And to do that, we focused on generating a comprehensive benchmark using this genome HGO2, which is a well-known cell line. It's been part of the Genome in a Bottle consortium, and they have a high-quality variant-based benchmark using the cell line. But the problem is that variant-based benchmark interrogates a very small fraction of the genome, and we want to be a complete representation. Essentially, whatever is in that DNA, we want to have represented as our benchmark. Because this has been part of the Genome in a Bottle, there's a huge amount of data available. Whenever a new instrument comes out or new chemistry comes out, sequencing companies use this as the first thing they run. And that's because it's been available as homogenized raw material that you can get from Genome in a Bottle. And so if you order a vial of it or I order a vial of it, we know that the DNA in both those is going to be exactly the same. And so this makes it extremely powerful as a benchmark. And our goal is to generate the complete 23 maternal-paternal chromosomes for this human individual. We want to have 100% accurate sequence so we can check an assembly, make sure it got every base right. We want to make sure it's perfect phasing so we can tell if an assembly switches between the maternal or the paternally inherited haplotypes. And we need to get all the tough stuff right, the centromeres, the large repeats, segmental duplications, the rDNA arrays. I'll tell you that we're not quite there. We don't have the rDNA arrays resolved in this benchmark yet, but we're pretty close on the rest of it. We're almost at 100% accurate sequence, so we can use it as a very powerful benchmark. And to go along with this benchmark, Nancy Hansen, who's pictured in the corner here, has developed software called GQC that lets you evaluate either assemblies or reads against this benchmark. So now that we have this truth set, we can go back and revisit the recipe and see that we still need the high-phi, the ONC, the high-C or not. And so we can generate these kind of plots. This is an NGA plot. I think all of you are familiar with NG statistics, N50 statistics. So this vertical line here at 50 would be the N50 you're familiar with, except this is an NGA plot, and the A stands for alignment. So you only get credit here for a large contig if it aligns to the truth. So that means it has to be the right haplotype all the way through, and it has to have no mistakes. So if you make a 100 megabase contig, but it joins two haplotypes together, you're not going to get credit for that. And the ideal assembly shown in black here, this is the benchmark. This is as good as you can do. And just like an ROC curve, the higher up on the curve, the closer to that line you are, the better you are. Right? And so we can put a bunch of assemblies in here and start seeing some patterns. So for example, this is comparing two versions of the Verco assembler. You can see a huge gain in performance with the version we just released about a month ago versus the previous versions because we've improved the accuracy of the sequence it outputs. You can also see that assembly polishing can make a big difference. So this assembly in the very bottom and the gray assembly are actually the identical ones, except one has been polished using hi-fi data and deep consensus. And so even though with hi-fi data, we think of it as so accurate and that we don't need to polish or curate our assemblies at all, it does still make a big difference. You can see there's a sizable jump in performance on this ROC curve for polished versus an unpolished assembly. And we don't have to look at just these kind of broad metrics. We can also drill in and see exactly where the assemblies are making mistakes. And so we can see that most of the mistakes they're making are in insertion deletions and homopolymers, primarily deletions. And this makes sense for what we know about the hi-fi sequencing, that it can undercall the length of a homopolymer. We can also evaluate the reads, and so this is showing you QV versus length for a bunch of reads. And so the bottom here is the QV, the y-axis is the length in kilobases, so 1,000 there's the megabase. And so we can see hi-fi reads and ONT are 10 reads. The ONT reads are much longer, but less accurate than the hi-fi reads. But there have been two tools recently that let you take this R10 data and improve it. One is called Hero, one is built in to the hi-fi SM assembler. And so you can see both of these actually make the ONT data higher accuracy than the hi-fi data, but it still keeps the length. So there's still hundreds of KB reads, but now rather than being Q20 or Q25, they're now Q40. So they're over 99.9% identity. And you can see that Hero does a little bit of a better job than hi-fi SM, but it is much more computationally expensive. And Hayu, who's the author of hi-fi SM, is going to talk about some updates and new versions of this hi-fi SM correction January 13th at 10:30, so you can listen to that if you're interested in more details. But now that we have this other data types as essentially can plug in for hi-fi data, we can now evaluate how well do those assemblies work. So again, similar plot as before, we have the ideal assembly. This is an assembly that used no ultra-long data with hi-fi SM. So even though if you look at the continuity, so these numbers here are T2T contigs and T2T scaffolds, all these assemblies are pretty good by those metrics, but on the actual accuracy plot, the not using ultra-long data makes it much less accurate. And then these are the two ONT correction data, so you can see that the one in purple here is slightly better than the hi-fi SM correction, but they're both not as good as using hi-fi data alone. And if we ask why that's happening, we see that the reason is the really large number of insertion and deletions. All these assemblies based on ONT have an order of magnitude more insertion and deletions than we do when we use the hi-fi as the base, right? But luckily, as I mentioned before, we have this trick of polishing an assembly. And so if we go back and we polish these assemblies, we take the exact same assembly again, and you can see the one in the bottom is without polishing, straight out of the assembler, and the one that I'm highlighting in the top here is after polishing with Medaka and this APK, this assembly polishing kit that ONT has recently released. You can see it becomes as high quality as the one based on hi-fi data. Actually has a higher N50 if you look at the curve later on, and has a higher number of T2T contigs and scaffolds. So polishing really addresses this problem. And when we look at the insertion and deletion rate, we again can see this assembly with polishing is almost comparable, a little bit worse, but pretty similar to the ONT, to the hi-fi based one. But obviously, we don't want to just match our current recipe. We want to do better. And luckily, ONT is actually better at running their instrument than we are. This is because it's using a pre-release version of chemistry that will roll out. And so you'll be able to do this kind of data as well. But this is actually the best assembly we've generated for this human sample to date, using this ONT kit that was released from London Calling a couple of years ago. So it's using all ONT data, the ONT corrected by hi-fi SM, followed by scaffolding with PORE-C, and then polishing with this APK kit. And it's actually the best assembly, like I said, that we've been able to automatically generate for HGO2 to date. And because this data is even better than what was publicly available and what I showed you before, it has a even lower insertion and deletion rate than we were seeing before. So in conclusion, the current T2T recipes as they stand require this combination of technologies that it needs hi-fi, it needs ONT, it needs Illumina, Hi-C, and that can be difficult to reproduce in a small lab or around the world. But as I showed you, ONT sequences produces actually the highest quality assembly we can evaluate it against this truth benchmark. And this APK or 6 before chemistry and Medaka polishing are critical. Without that, your assembly just has too many errors. It's not as accurate, even though it's contiguous. And so the question I want to ask, and I think the answer is going to be yes, but can portable sequencers suffice? And so this just shows you an output of the PromethION cells using cell line starting material, this HGO2 sample. And so for a human genome, this means we need to run this instrument 2 or 3 times, 4 or 5 cells, and we have all the data we need that went into that assembly that I showed you before. And all the computational costs, all the correction, the assembly, and the polishing costs less than $500, I would estimate on AWS, likely significantly less. And so this is really now accessible through a portable instrument for most labs. The big caveat is that this works great with cell lines and humans, but then it varies a little bit if we have a different species or tissues input works less well than cell line. And so having stability so that I know I'll always have the same yield of these 100 kilobase ultra-long reads between sample species will really make this, I think, a push-button solution that anyone can access. And so with that, I'll wrap up. I'll thank everyone in T2T Consortium pictured at the top. I'll thank everyone in our lab. Go see the talks that I mentioned if you're interested in more details about anything. And as a last slide, I'll just leave the resources that I talked about, the assembler, the two tools, the benchmark, and the software that goes along with it. And I'll take any questions.